And then you understand the green issues about that. Okay, so you can come up with there. I can help you to once you come up with an interview set of questions. I can modify that and say you're good to go. Go ahead and start interviewing people and find out how a certain phenomenon is evolving. So that you can conclude the pattern of whether the company is doing a good job, bad job, whatever it is. So based on the conclusions of that, right? So the analysis that you have can be on hard data, which is the desirable thing, because I asked you to look at some of the energy metrics that we've been talking about. But if it is hard to get reliable data and all that, you can resort to qualitative data and come up with a best practices model. And the opposite of best practices is what? Worst practices. Is it? What is the opposite of best practices? Huh? Not practicing at all. Yeah. So they have to first practice it before we know whether it is good, bad, right? So if they are practicing it, it could be good, it could be somewhere medium, or it could be really bad. Okay. Even that gives you some insights. If they are not doing something, the issue is why are they not doing that? Okay. All right. Many of you perhaps don't have an introduction to operations management. Am I right? Do you have any idea what it is? Okay. If I tell you that, okay, I can give you a very simple definition of operations management, right? If you take any company, right? If you take any company which is public limited, private limited, small and medium enterprise, what are the possible? What are the examples of that? When you take a unit, an economic unit, non-profit, right? Cooperative society, right? Pardon? NGOs, very good example. The government. Okay. What if I told you that if you want to analyze anything in any of this unit, all you need to look at is the process, a business process. Okay. So what we are saying is every company has predominantly only 4 business processes. In terms of economic activity, what they do is they fill orders. You get customer orders, right? You fill orders. That's one thing you do. Okay. The second thing you do is that new product development, new service development. That is number 2. Number 3, you work with suppliers. And number 4, you work with customers. Yeah, customers and end users the same. Okay. That's it. I have taught you operations management already. Every company has only 4 processes. The rest, these are called core processes. I'm not saying this is all they do. I mean, human resource pays bills, they hire people, okay, the logistics people move products, all of that is fine. But isn't this a very interesting insight? Because if I have the benefit of this knowledge saying that I don't care which unit it is, whether it's a small and medium enterprise, whether I'm an individual myself running my own company, all I need to take care of is 4 processes. Okay, it simplifies stuff, right? I want you to keep that in mind when you do your project. Okay. Now once I know what a process is, the first step that I do is I map the process. You follow? I map the process. Mapping the process means taking it from what happens from one step to the second step to the third step and fourth step and so on. Let me give you an example. Let's say all of these companies that we talked about, all of these economic units that we talked about, they serve customers, right? So what is the starting point of that? It is the customer placing an order, right? Customer placing an order. Pardon? Yeah, you do demand, right? But once you do the demand, you are trying to find out how many customers place orders. But from the firm point of view, at any point of time, if the company is successful, I can think of an example of a company where no customers place any order, then they'll go bankrupt. No, that's an extreme case, right? So you expect that the customers will place an order. So in this process mapping, what we are doing is we are trying to trace what happens to that order once it comes into the company. Whether it's a physical order or an electronic order, how it transcends across functional orders, functional units, and then afterwards the order is fulfilled, right? The product is shipped, the customer pays the money and all that, right? So this is process mapping. Is it clear? So if we take any example of an economic activity, give me an example of an economic activity that a company does. Quality, that is too broad, but quality management is too broad. In fact, can I give you even more simpler example? Take you as an individual. Okay, what do you do every day? So if I asked you yesterday, okay, think about all that you did since you woke up till you went to bed. Would you be, is it confidential information, or would you be okay to share that? Tell me, it's okay. We'll finish the example fast. Tell me, what did you do yesterday? Yesterday was a Sunday, right? So even more interesting. Did you go somewhere? You watched a movie? Did you go to the mall? What did you do? You played cricket. See. Why is that not so surprising? We are in India, of course, we play cricket a lot. Okay? So now, you know, I mean, with a little bit of recall, you can clearly say what happened from when you woke up till when you slept. Okay? So if you do that, supposing I ask you this, and this is in very simple language, how much time do you think yesterday was value added? You understand the term value added? All of you? How much time of that is, because opposite of value added is waste. Am I right? How much of the time was value added? It depends on your view, right? Because you will say cricket is extremely value added to me. I need to play that thing. Okay? But yes, see, that's a great comment. I want to do this first so that I can do the other stuff very well, you know. So what I was trying to get at is the first step in the process is process mapping. Just like in the individual can map what you did every day, an economic unit, I'll simply call it a firm just for a simple, because you can use it to NGO, government agency, non-profit, whatever you want, right? So a company can take these 4 processes and do a process mapping. Okay? So that is called ASIS. What are we currently doing? Okay? What do you expect to find if somebody did a process mapping like that? Let's say on order fulfillment. What do you think will happen? Do you think there will be maximum? Would they be using their time very well? Would it be all value added, or would there be waste? I'll get to, by the way, I think right now you don't have an idea of what waste is, so I'll tell you what waste is. Non-value added activities is waste. Okay? So you expect a high percentage of time which is non-value added, right? So what we want to do is to look at what they are doing currently and then say that, oh, there's a better way to do this, or this is too slow, and so on, and come up with an improved process. Okay? That's a very good tip for you. So whatever you're studying, you see what are they currently doing, and you just question yourself saying, on the metrics that I'm just going to get to over here, saying there ought to be a better way to do this. Okay? So that will give you, as a standard template, a good way to put it into your project findings and your project report. So if I take this process, here's the second beautiful part about understanding operations management. We simplified it to 4 processes, right? Every process has the same standard set of metrics. So if a process is there, like I'm talking about, let's say order fulfillment, okay? If I take order fulfillment, that is the whole process of satisfying customer orders, okay? I can find out how costly it is. What is the cost to fill orders is something I can track within my company. The second, somebody said quality, okay? So is this a very high quality process that we are filling our customers, right? Pardon? time. So that's the next one. Is this taking too long? Lead time. And then pertaining to what we are doing in this course, is it using a lot of energy? Okay, is it using a lot of water? Is it using a lot of harmful chemicals? So there are many ways that you can actually measure process metrics. Okay, so you look at what they're doing currently and then see how can I improve that. All right. Okay, next step. Anybody here has any background in procurement, in purchasing? Anybody worked in organization in purchasing? Okay, but some purchasing activity you know. Okay. Correct, correct. So that is always a very hot area, because you will expect that there are a lot of inefficiencies, that if you go to the rural sector and find, for example, one good one will be the cooperative society which sells all the Gandhigram products that we have, the shops. You ask them what kind of procurement they do, you know, purchasing. That would be a very good thing to do. Now, many of you said you didn't do industrial purchasing, but I can tell you almost everybody in this class have done individual purchasing. Am I right? You have bought stuff, right? You bought airline tickets, you know, whatever it is. You bought your groceries, you bought your fruits and vegetables and all that. So whatever is the applicable in your individual life is applicable in the industrial and the corporate life too, right? For example, when you go and buy, I think bananas is the popular fruit over here. Okay, when you go and buy bananas from the lady on the street over here, do you negotiate? Fixed price, right? So you're actually practicing procurement principles, because in firms they rarely pay fixed price. Right, so we will get to some of those issues over there. That there is power, and you can exercise your power, and like Walmart and all these companies are able to get lower prices because they have the power, right? So procurement is a very key area where improvements will make, because it makes a huge difference on the bottom line, on the firm profits. Okay, so that's also a very good area that you can look at. Reverse logistics, because the topic is about energy, we are looking at post use. What happens to, so a question like what happens to XYZ, shoes or whatever you use, you know, in your everyday life, post use, where does it go? Trace it back to the landfill. That could be a very good project to do. By the way, this is my favorite, packaging. All right, even if you take consumer packaging, right? I mean, I've been to India multiple years, and over the years I've found this change, that these shampoos are now not coming in bottles, but in sachets. That is, you know, and you can think of the implications of that. Why did that happen? Right? So you can think of any packaging. For example, many times you may, let me ask you an example. Have you ever bought a product where you felt that it has multiple layers of packaging until you get to what you want? You know, there's so much of padding done in the packaging before you get to the actual product. What's an example of this? Pardon? Huh? No, you're talking about the company. I'm talking about, tell me the product that you bought. Mobile. It comes packaged. See, now you can think of the reason. One is they want to keep it in one place, right? So that you can use it. But then it still seems that it is excessive packaging, right? Okay, so packaging is another hot area that you can take a look at. Then tools, I already talked to you about the tools. You will not know much about these tools until we discuss the content which we will do, and at that time you can think about this. Life cycle costing, environmental audit, certification, if you are working with suppliers and certifying them, or you're certifying them on safety or an environmental thing, environmental reporting. Now if you pick a local area, the chances are very low that these people are reporting anything about environmental. But if you have access to larger companies, they do environmental reporting as well. Okay. Then customer oriented sustainability. But this, by the way, is my third hot area. Corporate social responsibility. Okay. So corporate social responsibility will be like, are they treating whichever unit that you are studying, again you can look at the best practices and the bad practices too. Do they employ women? Okay, what's the percentage of women? Is that gender discrimination? Are the workers treated right? Are the workers exploited? Do they pay them fair wages? Okay, then another hot area relating to the course would be what is the work area conditions that they are working in. Is it too hot? Is it too noisy? Is it does it have so much of polluted air? That you can study, right? Am I right? You can study that and take any one. For example, pollution. If you go to a place and they're making, I don't know, maybe that Ayurvedic products we were talking about. Okay, I expect there won't be too much pollution, but you never know. Okay, if you go and find that, okay, maybe it's too noisy, or maybe the way they're sitting close to each other is not ergonomically correct, because they may end up with all back problems and all that. They're all kind of compressed in a small place and all that, right? So it is the power of observation. So once you take this facility visit and you say, well, I observed this, there you go, you have a CSR topic to do this. Okay, you try to find out what is the root cause of this, and then come up with a solution of how to solve it, how to solve this thing. Okay, and later in the course, actually this is already in your handout. I emailed the Walmart document on CSR. That should give you a lot of ideas, because they do a comprehensive coverage of all the CSR metrics worldwide. And the amazing thing about that is it's all the same metric, same standards. Whether it's Egypt or Bangladesh or India, they have the same standards over there. Okay, one of the best document I have seen about CSR. Okay, okay, settings. This should probably give you some ideas as well. Agriculture, there's so many things you can do around agriculture. Look at around the crops over here, horticulture, even that is fine. Small and medium enterprises. Most of the, it looks like we don't seem to be having too many, even if you go to Dindigul, you probably may not get too many large companies. It's just, for example, retailing, right? It's all small and medium enterprises. So if you have a contact over there and you say you're doing this for a project over there, and we'll give you a report at the end, I think you'll do very well in getting their consent. Okay, GRI itself. So this place itself can be a context that you can study. Any biotech, many of you. By the way, I also wanted to tell you one thing. A bulk of this class is doing MTech in renewable energy, right? So you must have come across some projects that you did in your coursework, or some contacts. Maybe your seniors did some projects. You can go back to that setting over there. Okay, now do a supply chain project. So if you did a technical project, which is I think more likely that you did a technical project in one particular setting, and maybe you did it in an applied place, you can go back and do a supply chain related project based on the same one. Okay, so those the technical, the bulk of you who have done all the renewable energy projects on the technical fine, you don't need to go further than to try and get the supply chain angle, or the sustainability angle on that. Make sense? Okay, that was what I was thinking about in biotech. Rural development. Now the CSR topic I told you would be a very good topic which goes into rural development. Okay, how do we change stuff over there? Okay, because companies, and when we get to the course material, I'll tell you that they have struggled with it. Okay, while we are at that topic, I'll give you an example of that. The use of child labor. Multinational companies have suffered a lot because they have found it is very difficult to eliminate, even reduce the use of child labor. And not only in India, in places like Bangladesh and Indonesia and all that, in developing countries. So they have an ethical, moral value system which says you cannot use child labor in your factories or in your distribution centers, right, when they should be going to school. Okay, but try to implement that policy in these settings is very difficult. So I've given you an example of CSR that you can do, which could be a rural development thing. All right, so you can first look at the prevalence of this. Okay, but please try to think of the opposite too. Sometimes you may come to a setting where you find that they're doing wonderfully well on CSR. Okay, so that could be your project too, and find out what is the genesis of that. Green buildings, by the way. So all your MTech students in this from GRI, are there examples of green buildings here? You have? You have? There you go. You have a project. You heard of LEED certification and all that. So there's different standards of assessing green buildings. That could be a project. Okay. Or if some unit is trying to make, and you can see so many examples of this. You know, they want to make their store more green. You know, they want to collect more solar energy to run anything over there. That is an example of it's kind of like a green building, because what you can do in one place you can do in another one, right? Energy monitoring, by the way, a lot of you know, in the US they do have level to level energy monitoring. Every floor will monitor the energy use on a dynamic basis, right? If it gets too hot and you find that the AC is cranked up to an exorbitant level, they can lower it. So it monitors it. This is real time, and you can sit on your PC and see that. And you know, these days, and this is there in Europe and in US as well, you can be sitting in your office and you can monitor the energy usage at your home. There's always some static energy use that you're using, right? Because you need to, the refrigerator needs to run. You're not shutting many of the things there, right? So you can really see. I don't know the real term they have for that. I don't know. It's called captive energy or whatever it is. Stagnant energy. I'm not getting the right word over here. But this is not an active energy. So this is like a dormant energy. But it's still, you know, hitting the grid in a small way. You can monitor that remote over there by having this device over there. Okay. Water conservation and recycling in farms, or I gave one example, that could be one. Hygienic products, the whole organic movement could be a project that you could do, and there's one here close, I understand, the Ayurvedic thing. Textile industry also, I gave us an example because it's local. Okay. All right. So before we go on to this, do you have any questions? I threw a lot of project ideas at you. Now, are you comfortable and confident that you'll come up with some good ideas at the initial stage, right? Everybody? Yes? And you don't have to do it individually. You sit around with 5 others and then you brainstorm, and I'm sure you'll come up with something. But have I given you enough ideas that you can explore? Right? And it doesn't have to be just what I give. When you can come to me and or to Professor Kilbachman and say, here is an idea that I have, can I do this for the project? But the only thing I ask you to do is, please come, crystallize on the project really soon. Okay? Don't spend 1 month on it, because by 1 month you need to give the report. Okay? Try to do it in a couple of days. Okay? At least come up with the brainstorming. You may come round 1, round 2. First time you say, okay, I have these ideas, and we'll say, okay, we'll go and work some more, and then I do the second round, and finally we'll come up with something, and we will have the visibility of what the 8 other teams are doing. So so we don't want too much of overlap. Does it make sense? To tell you one thing, that once the once the course is over, you will have access to all of these slides. Okay, so you can take notes, but if you run out of time, don't worry about it, because you will have access to them. So I will be giving you examples of some small video segments for you to watch. You know, I've given the link over here, and if it's a long video, then I will tell you to just watch it at home. Okay. Oh, it's over here. I was looking for it. Okay, so I kind of thought that sometimes, you know, I watched this in my guest house thing, and it kind of did not work after 12 minutes. So I said, well, if that's going to happen here in the classroom, it won't be good. So I'm going to give you the main points in this video. Okay, Steve Howard. By the way, how many of you here have heard of TED.com? TED, you have, right? For those of you who have not heard about it, it's a wonderful resource. TED.com. Okay, they have these short videos that they post on different topics, and it's a wonderful way to understand what's happening in anything. So this has been abstracted from a TED talk by a guy called Steve Howard, who was the chief operating officer of IKEA. Okay, the chief operating officer of IKEA. So the main points he makes from this is to say that it's okay. I just have this. It's okay. Okay, he says think of three things, three metrics. By 2030, 3 billion people will come out of poverty and join the middle class. So we're going to have a bludgeoning middle class. Okay? Okay, in fact, if you stop and think about this, right, what's the implication of this? From a business point of view, once you have the benefit of this, how would you tap into this information or exploit this opportunity? Pardon me? Marketing opportunity. Everybody agrees? Right? So we think about products which now are affordable, but not affordable to the bottom of the pyramid, the poverty ones. So these people have come out of poverty, which means that now they can have a slightly better product. Right? So when you look through these things, I want you to think about all the implications of that, right? You all heard about global warming, right? I'm sure all the MTech students would have, because it must have been bludgeoned to them through the coursework, right? You heard about global warming, right? But this is alarming. This was true because they're saying that there's a projection that it, right now it's probably in the 2 to 3 degrees increase in temperatures. But they project it to be 6 degrees. So we see manifestations of this, right? What happens? What is the manifestation of this? What is the manifestation of this increase over here of 6 degrees? Climate change, which is excessively cold winters and excessively hot summers. I grew up in India, okay? I can think of only 2 or 3 cities. Of course, Rajasthan is exception because there I think more of them where the summer temperatures were over 40. Even reaching 40. Probably Vijayawada, okay, and whole of Rajasthan, okay, and a few others. Today, what is the case? There was a report I read in the news. In Rajasthan, one day the temperature was almost 50. Okay, and we don't get too much on the cooler side, but it still gets cool, right? I mean, it gets the historically cooler places in the north are getting much more cooler. Third point, 12 cities have a population of 1 million or more. And he was comparing, Steve Howard was from UK and he was comparing to what it was when we were there. Okay, so we are having highly congested cities, which means all the pollution problems, all the traffic problems and all that, right? So his point is sustainability is just not something which is a fancy term that is nice to do. I feel good because I recycled my bottle. Okay, I feel good because I don't consume too much, that I don't waste food, for example, right? But it's no longer, and of course I gave you individual examples, but there's firm examples too, right? Firms giving charitable donations and all that. They're trying to work towards developing a community and all that. They come back and say, oh, I feel good. And they let you know because in the reports, annual reports, they mention this information. Okay? But he's making a point that it is no longer nice to do, to get a pat in the back. It is now come to a situation where it is must do. Okay? Right? Now, there are a lot of examples. That's why I like to use the product as the unit of analysis. You can know a lot about what happens in the sustainability journey when you look at a product, right? So he says that nowadays you need to make a product which is aesthetically good looking. Apple, iPhones, whatever. example you think about, right? You have to make it affordable. There the Apple example goes away because Apple phones are very expensive, right? So it has to be functional. That means it should work. Okay, so it should be aesthetically beautiful. It should work. It should be affordable. And nowadays, he says the debate has come that we have to think about sustainability. What happens to the products? Okay, I can give you an example, but I want you to think of an example. Give me an example of a product where you want to think about the sustainability aspect of that product. What's an example? How about you? Give me an example. Pardon? Automobiles. Can you expand on that? Good. So it has, I think I get your example. So for example, if you know that the emissions are very large, then you have to make engines which emit less, right? On Reliance. So you see there's a product connection into that, right? So for every product, you are asking the question, what happens post-use, right? What happens to the car after post-use? What happens to the tires? Are you recapturing the value of that or not? What happens to the electronics industry is a very good one. What happens to your laptops? What happens to your, monitors, right? So this has created a whole new industry to collect them post-use. Even cell phones, by the way, they're collected, right? They're collected and stripped out and trying to recapture value from that and so on, right? So a very good example, and I understand that this campus is taking this initiative very seriously, is LED bulbs, right? You go from fluorescent to incandescent to now LED, right? Not even halogen is not as good as LED. Okay, so that's a good example of how we need to be able to do that. If you see the video, you will see that he's saying that if I install an LED today, even up to I become a grandfather, that same bulb will work. I don't know if this can be practically tested, but but that's an amazing thing, right? I mean, right now we went through an era where we would be replacing bulbs pretty often. Second thing is you're buying one more, right? If I gave you that example of 10, how many are you buying by the time that the 10 is lasting? You're buying 9 other. Okay, it's like if you're thinking about this marching towards the landfill, okay, the guy in the 10 thing only marches very slowly because after 10 years only it goes, right? But the guy who's got the 1 year thing is frequently throwing products into the landfill, about 9 to 10 times. You see the impact of that, right? With one particular product example, I've given you the idea that, that there is a ripple effect of what's going on over here, okay? Raw materials choice, this is where I come in, this is my area in purchasing. There is a book that I will be sharing with you later on, and got this from, this is from the TED video, but I got other examples from that book as well, is that we think about cotton. This is the example that he mentions, cotton as being an environmentally friendly product, but the process of making cotton is very harmful to the environment, with the chemicals, the amount of water they use, and so on. Okay, so they came up with an idea of how to take care of those problems, called the Better Cotton Initiative. Okay, and you can Google many of these programs. You can Google and see what they do. Am I right? Okay, all the organic movements and all that, these programs which are there, you can Google them, right? This I was telling in my opening presentation, that the companies are now working with farmers and giving them a lot of help, technical help, about what amount of water they're using, how much chemicals, pesticides, all those things, and because they're using this to increase their yield. So one of the biggest environmental dilemma is that you will find that there are trade-offs, even between what seems to be one environmentally okay ingredient and another one which is harmful. There are trade-offs. Okay, you could have two environmentally okay ingredients. So I'm going to pick one or the other, and the trade-offs come, for example, in this one that I was telling you, is that pesticide use is fertilizer use is used because to improve yield, but it has harmful consequences. It can go down the the soil, get into the water base and all that, right? It can affect the drinking water and all that, right? So they work with them and look at all the ingredients that they are using to make them environmentally friendly. Okay, so right now there is, and I will share with you a company which is now world famous, that they give you this consulting where they will look at any product that you make and go back to the ingredients and whether it is a chemical, mechanical, electrical part, whatever it is, and look at and color code it, green, red and yellow, to see if it is environmentally friendly, environmentally neutral or environmentally harmful. Okay, and they've got a protocol in place. Okay, MBDC protocol, that's named after the company. Okay, so you can do this, that you can actually take a product, because people have been doing this for years and they just look at innovation and throw something in and all that and don't care about the effect on the environment or a comprehensive sustainability angle. So these people are giving you a protocol how to systematically look at one part which goes into your product and say, well, you're using this but you can use something else. Okay, so then what happens? Then you get an environmentally friendly product but your cost goes up. So you see, so it's not so easy, so you make these trade-offs over there, right? But not addressing that will create a problem in the long run, because then you will get the label of not being a very environmentally friendly product. And remember, he was saying about nice to do and must do. Couple of years ago it was okay, you'd say, I don't want that label. Okay, I'm making this product, I'll say it is not green at all. You call it any other color, it's probably a red product. It does a lot of harm on the environment. But you know why they need to pay attention? I strongly urge you to go through it. I've given you the gist, a summary of what he said in that. It really sets this pace for what we're going to start off with. Okay, I mean, you'll find it. If you don't, just shoot me an email, I'll tell you. Okay, here are some examples which may give you some ideas for your project. We are also going to be discussing a case in this course called Hayward, and they were dealing with forestry and lumber and all that. So what IKEA did, and this is systematically what they do, when they face a problem, like in another case, I mentioned this here as well, the child labor problem, they don't say that this is the supplier's problem. They go upstream till the source to fix that problem. They did the same thing with forestry, because forests were being cut. I mean, this is, by the way, we just talked about this, right? I mean, if you look at the number one cause of our climate going so hot is because we don't do any forest replacement, right? The deforestation does not exist at all. We are cutting down trees like there's no tomorrow. So what they did is to work with the forestry and other supply chain partners, okay, to make sure that they are not sourcing from an undesirable either source or a supplier. Okay, and this is very popular amongst many of the cutting edge companies. Like we have this renewable energy source over here, that they do it across the supply chain. So they do it in the store, they do it in a distribution center, they do it in they ask the suppliers to do it as well. Okay, so for instance, I'll give you one example of this. If you look at motionless detectors, right? I mean, something motion detectors, not motionless. So that means the light automatically shuts off when it senses that there's nobody in the room or in the store and so on, right? So IKEA does that, and a lot of companies do that. When they do that in their store, they make it the same practice in the distribution center and the same practice in the suppliers. Started before TQM is that, I'll give you a simple example. A supplier will send a product to a customer, and the customer will say that, okay, out of 10 things, 2 were wrong. Okay, there's a 2% defect. Okay, so they would say, okay, then you keep sending another one and so on. And so they were trying to fix the acceptable defect rate. That was preceding the TQM movement. That's called good enough quality. I send a supplier and he says, okay, 96% quality is good enough supply. Okay. The Japanese introduced us to this, saying that there is no such thing as good enough quality. It has to be zero defect.